And I'm joined now by the CEO of the Nevada Independent, John Ralston, the early voting extraordinaire who is tracking all these early voting numbers like a hawk. John, thank you for the work and thanks for joining us.
Always a pleasure, Ben.
Yeah, so let's just dive right into an unprecedented trend, really, at least in modern Nevada political history in the last 20, 30 some years, where Republicans have jumped out to a pretty sizable lead at last check, around 5%, 42,000 some odd votes. More than have been cast so far by Democrats. How unusual is that? Have you seen that in your time since covering Nevada?
It's very, very unusual, and I go back so far, Ben. I haven't been able to track the early votes for that long, but for the last 20 years or so, in what I call the so-called Reid machine era, when the Democrats have banked so many early votes through the efforts of that machine built by the late Harry Reid, this has never happened before, that the Republicans have had such a sizable lead. Usually what happens in early voting is the Democrats build up what I call a firewall in Clark County, where all the Democratic vote is, and then they try to hold off the Republicans in the rurals and on election day. And of course, where you are, Washoe County is usually the decider of deciders, the swing county and the swing state, as we like to say. But listen, it's not over yet. There's still a lot of mail to come in, especially in Clark, but also in Washoe. And so it's hard to say anything definitive yet. And there are so many more now, Ben. This is something else that's changed. So many more independent voters.
Yeah.
Who have voted, and we don't know how they're voting. We can predict pretty well, not with 100% accuracy, but pretty well in a presidential year, how the Republicans and Democrats are voting. The independents are a little bit of a black box, although I think, based on data I've seen in polling, they lean towards the Democrats. How much, though, and whether it's enough for them to catch up to the Republicans, I don't know.
Yeah, it'd be a huge gap if this trend of GOP continuing to win in the early vote were to continue through Election Day. Is it your belief that they've kind of padded this huge lead with people that would have otherwise just voted on Election Day, and normally they'd get this big Election Day bump, and that might be thwarted this year, and so there won't be that big bump? Or is that potentially still coming too?
It's a great question, Ben. There's no question that they're cannibalizing some of their election day vote. As you recall, back in 2020, Republicans were being urged not to vote by mail and not to early vote, but to go on election day. And they did, and they won pretty sizably on election day. In 2022, it was less true, but still pretty true. But this time, the Trump campaign and Republicans in Nevada have encouraged folks to vote early, to mail their ballots in. And so that's why there's been this big change. And when you see the delay in counting in Clark County, especially, and that happens every cycle, but at least since we've become a mostly mail state in 2020 and 2022, you have maybe, more than a third of those mail ballots are going to come in after early voting closes on Friday. So it's hard to tell what it's going to look like. But the pattern is definitely different than it has been the last three presidential cycles.
No doubt. You are speaking to Democratic contacts and sources, I imagine. What's kind of the panic level for them on a scale of 1 to 10? And walk us through, what is the path for them? Is it kind of catching up on Saturday, Sunday, Monday when there is no in-person early voting?
So I guess the panic level depends on which Democrat you talk to. I think it ranges from outright panic to be calm, everything's okay, and not the be calm while everything's going wrong kind of scene. I think that they actually believe that they can still make a comeback. And if history is a guide, there are still a lot of mail ballots that come in, especially in Clark County. And they believe also, Ben, that these independents are going to swing their way, that's what the data shows them, that's what polling shows them. For people who don't remember, Joe Biden won independents based on exit polling, which can be flawed, by 6 points in 2020. If the Democrats win independents by 6 points and they get their mail ballots in, you and I are going to be up late on Tuesday night, and we're going to be probably still not sure, even after Tuesday night, who won Nevada. But the Republicans are in the driver's seat right now in the same way that Democrats are usually in the driver's seat.
Yeah, and so much so that I've seen one conservative pundit in Nevada saying, Nevada could win all 4 of the congressional races, as well as President Trump and Sam Brown winning here. Are those beliefs and hopes justified by these early voting numbers?
Well, I don't know who that conservative pundit is, but I'd like you to tell that person that I will unload my entire bank account and bet that person they are wrong. It would take the red wave that we have not seen since 2014 here, and that was an off year for that to happen. Now, listen, Trump could win Nevada. Sam Brown could eke out a victory, but it would be a miracle for the Democrats to lose all 3 of those seats, House seats in southern Nevada. There is a little bit of irrational exuberance going on by some Republicans, especially whoever this conservative pundit you haven't named is, who appears to not understand how elections work.
I'll name him for you once we're not recording any longer. So in the Nevada Senate race, though, we've seen a ton of money flow in from the NRSC. Very excited by kind of these early voting numbers. Any hot takes as it pertains to the Senate race? For a minute there was seeming like Rosen had pulled away with an 8, 9, sometimes 10-point lead in some of these polls. Seems like now it's going to be much tighter than that.
Yeah, the polls have not been very reliable in the Senate race. Ben, you've been around long enough, as younger than I as you are, to know that Nevada Senate races are not blowouts. It's not going to be a blowout. It was never going to be a double-digit race. I even thought the polls that showed Rosen ahead by 8 or 9 were wrong. It was probably about a 4 or 5 point race, which is a solid win. But I think that the Republicans are right to be encouraged by these early numbers, and that's why the head of the NRSC was in the state this week. That's why they're pouring money into TV, because even though I think they were not very optimistic at all about Sam Brown, they think if the turnout can remain this way for the Republicans, that Sam Brown has a chance. And there's no reason for them not to think that, but Rosen still has the advantage.
Yeah, well, remember, of course, Senator Catherine Cortez Masto won her reelect by, 2/10 of a point, some crazy small margin. I think it was 8,000 votes. So it is going to be close on November 5th, no matter what the polls say. John Ralston, we'll let you get back to the early voting blog and everything else going on at the Nevada Independent. We appreciate getting some of your time.
Always a pleasure, Ben.